What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review. But before I get started, quick little health update. As of recording this video, which is March 27th, it's been 1 whole week since getting the tooth pulled, and while the gum hasn't formed up yet, the little hole that's there, it's shrinking, and actually in terms of feeling, I'm feeling pretty damn good. So yeah, I figured I'd let you guys know how I'm doing. I'm doing a lot better. As you can tell, I am sounding better compared to the reviews I did last weekend, just because I was just trying my best to do those videos for you guys despite the circumstances. But excuse me. But regardless, here I am sounding better, feeling better, kind of almost back to 100%. Just gotta wait for all the tissue to form so that way there's a gum there and not just a hole. But regardless, I am now here to do my review. I am reviewing the latest offering from, well, Swedish melodic death metal legends, Arch Enemy with Blood Dynasty. This comes out on March 28th, this time on Century Media Records, the label I'm talking about, and man, I've lost count how many albums Arch Enemy has had, but this is actually the first review I've done for Arch Enemy since War Eternal, which was 11 years ago. I didn't review Will to Power or Deceivers because, well, I heard stuff off of those albums and I wasn't too keen on it. But I figured I'd give them another shot, considering I kept hearing from a lot of fans that, like, the singles kind of sounded like a return to form back to, like, the early mid-2000s, like the early Angela era, like it kind of has that intensity. And, well, I'll just go ahead and say, spoilers, it pretty much does get back to that, but also other aspects show up. So, I'll be honest with you, so I'm about to drop a controversial take right here, but in terms of vocals, I think Alyssa White Gloves is the best vocalist Arch Enemy has ever had. As much as I love Angela, I like Alyssa's growls and screams more. And plus, she's got more range in her voice, not only in that aspect, but in melody. And I'll touch on those in a moment. But let's get started with the song. So we kick off with Dream Stealer. And I actually really like how it starts with these, like, with this funeral organ, and then strings come in with my, like, kind of quiet chants going on before it just unleashes into, like, thrashy rhythms, but dare I say, brutal riffs. Like, this is probably some of the heaviest stuff that the band has written in a dog's age. Like, the riffs that show up here on Dream Stealer are just pummeling and just full of sweat and vinegar and balls. And then, out of nowhere, Alyssa's voice takes a turn to a place I hadn't heard her voice go this low since her Agonist days. Like, she's getting borderline guttural on quite a lot of moments, not only on this song, but across the board. And I think it perfectly complements the more brutal nature of the song, but it's all on top of eventually, like, this big double time gallop in the chorus where her voice goes back to the trademark, like, mid-range scream growl kind of thing she's done for many years. But there's also some heavy groove going on here, like death metal groove. Like, there's a good chunk of this album where it kind of harkens more towards, like, classic death metal at times, and this song definitely has those moments that show up where it feels a bit more like classic death metal with that, like, Gothenburg mellow death packaging on top. But then you go into a track like Illuminate the Path, where for the most part the riffs still very much in the mellow death realm, but I would say they were closer to Amon Amarth than anything else, or hell, even like very early Arch Enemy when they were a little bit I don't know if epic's the right word, but a little more darker sounding, like darker overall. But it's kind of like a hybrid of, like, a darker sound, but also some Amon Amarth elements I'm hearing. But it's always on top of another double time gallop. There's some soaring melodies. Dare I say, slight power metal elements come in. But also the chorus is this big catchy chorus with clean vocals. So Alyssa is actually, thus far, she's introducing more clean vocals into the band, which I will admit, I was hoping, like, War Eternal, she did a really good job, but there were no clean vocals. And I know how great Alyssa is as a vocalist, and I was hoping that eventually Arch Enemy would utilize her full potential. And there were a couple of songs on Will to Power where she does showcase it a little bit, and I like that. But the songs themselves just didn't gel. I don't know how Deceivers was because I didn't really listen to it. But here, not only on this song, but really on quite a few songs, you're hearing more clean vocals from Alyssa, which I'm so glad she's getting to be used to her fullest potential. Which now brings me into the lead work. Now, the lead work on this album, of course, the last couple of albums you had Jeff Loomis, and unfortunately, Michael Amott didn't want him to utilize his entire toolbox. Unfortunately, this is actually the first album with Joey Concepcion. I think that's how you say it, formerly of The Absence, and he's the lone American member of the band, while Alyssa is French-Canadian, and then everybody else, the Swedish people that I absolutely love. So he actually, I think, helps push Michael Amott a little bit, which makes me scratch my head, like, Jeff Loomis was in the band for a while, and yet he wasn't really doing a whole lot. It's a head scratcher, but with Joey, he's showcasing some really cool ripping leads and actually kind of helped pushing Michael Amott to who he was back from like the mid 2000s back to his days and even Carnage, where he's showcasing more great lead play and great shred. Like both Michael and Joey play off each other very well on this album, like great twin leads, great harmonies, trade-offs. Like the lead work on this album's probably some of the best lead work on an Arch Enemy album in quite a long time, which is sad. It just makes me more sad that Jeff Loomis wasn't doing more, but then again, I think that was down to Michael. It's still a mystery why Jeff wasn't utilized fully on the last two albums, but I digress. But the point is, lead work is awesome on this album. But, man, I've only been on 2 tracks and we're already about 8 minutes into the review. Trying to get through it now. So then we get into tracks like March of the Miscreants, where there's like a groove but with machine gun riffs, almost thrashy, but then it gets like really thick and chunky and heavy. And again, Alyssa's vocals going way down in the registers. But then you do get some like cool tremolos and some thrashy moments, blast beats, which this was the only track on the album where there were blast beats, but some cool drum and bass grooves come in here and there on the album, like particularly here and the closer, Liars and Thieves, you get like moments where the bass and the drums really shine. Million Suns, tremolo riffs on top of like a lumbering groove. So this one is another one of those songs that kind of more or less feels more classic death metal, like Obituary, but also like Bolt Thrower, and maybe even, excuse me, maybe even like modern bands like Gatecreeper, for example, or Frozen Soul, where you get tremolos on top of a lumbering groove, but you still get those soaring melodies on the guitars. Don't Look Down. This one, I think, goes for more thrash. Like, there's thrashy riffs, aggressive double time, but you still get some heavy groove that comes in as well. Presage, more or less an acoustic interlude, but it's pretty, even though it could have just been the intro for the title track, which the title track has quite a lot of things going, like soaring melody at the beginning, but then you get a real sinister riff on top of a nice galloping rhythm. There's some chugs going on here, double time with drum grooves, and then the song Paper Tiger. This track kind of caught me by surprise. While it's still Arch Enemy, this song almost feels like their attempt at classic heavy metal, like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest riffs, and melodies and harmonies all over the album. And also I love the little evil whispers Alyssa's doing at the beginning, which was really cool. And how like even the opening riff, dare I say, it gets borderline sleazy. Like, even on some of the riffs on Don't Look Down, it got a little bit sleazy. Excuse me. But then you move into a cover song, Vivre Libre, which is a song by a French band called Blasphemy with an E at the end. And I didn't know about this song, but hearing this version, beautiful cover. Like, it's all clean vocals from Alyssa, and she, of course, it's all French lyrics, and of course, she being from Quebec, being bilingual, it made sense. And I gotta say, Alyssa's clean vocals are some of the most beautiful vocals I've heard her do. Like, this was actually a beautiful cover. The clean guitars were very, very cool. Even the heavier riffs have that classic metal, doom metal kind of feeling, and even the solos, kind of like almost David Gilmour-esque leads going on this cover. I need to listen to the original to kind of get the full scope, but I really, really like this cover. And it's the longest track of the album at over 5.5 minutes. Most of these songs are like over the 4-minute mark. But then you get into the Pendulum, big chugs and grooves. Again, it gets almost towards power metal, but not quite. Soaring gallops, and of course, even some acoustic guitars come in. But then you get to the closer, Liars and Thieves. Excuse me. Dark, soaring melodies, but it does get into like speed metal D beats, and again, some more sleazy riffs come in, but it does turn more aggressive really quickly. And then it gets a little bit towards classic metal at times, but still retaining who Arch Enemy are. And there's some clean vocals that show up here too. And then, of course, killer drum fill and bass line before it goes into the solo sections. So, as far as production, it was produced by Daniel Erlandson and Michael Amott, but mixed and mastered and engineered by both Jens Bogren and Tony Lindgren. So, once you get Jens Bogren on your album, I should say, it's going to sound really good. And the production on this album is fantastic. Now, that's despite all the praise I'm giving this album, it doesn't leave out some issues. And that would be, Illuminate the Path. While it's a fun song, it was, in my opinion, definitely the weakest song on the album because, it just kind of felt like playing it safe, almost sounded like an Amon Amarth B-side, like I said. And the chorus kind of didn't really fit the song, even though Alyssa's vocals were great on it. I just don't think it fit the song as a whole. And then, really the only other issue that I had was the acoustic part in the Pendulum just pops up for like maybe 6-7 seconds, and then it just abruptly gets cut off in back to the heavy. I wish that acoustic part could have lasted a little bit longer before it went back to the heavier melodeath that was going on. But other than those two really minor gripes, I'm going to go ahead and say that this might be the best Arch Enemy album since Doomsday Machine, which is 20 years. So it's been a long time coming for this band to pump out something great. And I feel like this album might still be divisive, but from what I heard, I really, really like this album. I'm going to go ahead and give this a 4 out of 5. I thought this was great from start to finish. Apart from, Illuminate the Path being the lone weak song, it still wasn't bad. And even those other minor issues didn't really bother me all that much, really, at all. I really like the diverse songwriting on here. Like, you get some, classic death metal moments, some classic heavy metal, bordering on power metal, but it doesn't really go down that path, really, at all. And, of course, your classic melodic death metal staples from Arch Enemy are on here, too. So, yeah, I thought this was some really good stuff. So, 4 out of 5. If you're a fan of Arch Enemy, then chances are you're already going to get it. But if you're a lapsed fan that's curious, I'd say give this album a shot. I think it's actually pretty damn fucking good. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It feels good to be kind of back to a more jovial self after the past week of just, even though I'm still not totally healed, It's mostly just waiting for the gum tissue to form. But aside from that, I'm feeling great. I sound great, and I'm glad to be back more full force. So yeah, this was a longer review, and that's just because I wanted to bring up all that, but also there was a lot to talk about on this album. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. But until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.